Today we received our first update after the Bug Strike Back update in Grounded. This is going to be patch 0.13.1. It's a minor update, but it does address a lot of things. Specifically, what I'm going to be looking for is, does it address any of the major issues that the Bug Strike Back introduced to the game, in my opinion? Those are going to be, first of all, factional raids not being optional for those that don't want them. So there's been a lot of pushback on the fact that you can only turn off factional raids or the factional reactivity in custom games. You can't do it in the traditional mild, medium, or woe modes, which the majority of people probably are playing under, especially those that have hundreds of hours and have been playing for months, if not years. Second's going to be whether or not armor was addressed, specifically the fact that armor in general feels weak and the bonuses for it feel not really impactful after the armor upgrades were added, because now armor is going to provide you far less defense, far less durability at the start before you upgrade them versus what it was before the Bug Strike Back update. And then third is going to be the cost of upgrading armor. This was addressed in the final update for the Bug Strike Back. Right after the public test server ended, they did sneak in the reduction in cost of levels 1 to 5 from, I think it was 62 grub leather plates down to 45. However, right now it doesn't to me, it doesn't make sense to have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 armors all cost the same to upgrade when there's just no reason to invest that many resources in tier 1, tier 2, when tier 3 just are superior. The same can actually be said for weapons. So those are the major things I want to look at in this patch to see if they've actually been addressed. Before we begin, what I want to do is I want to thank my channel members, especially King Bling Blah Gaming, Matthew Campbell, and Stephen Van, and all my other channel members for helping make videos like this possible. If you're interested in becoming a channel member, you can click the join button below or the link in the description down below. Let's get started. So as I said, what we're going to be looking for is changes to the factional raids and armor specifically, and we're going to just skim through these. So first up is going to be factional reputation, waft emitter, and mixer. Amount of extra creatures that are sent during base attacks and multiplayer has been lowered. I did notice when I played co-op with Original Ryan that when we did the Grasslands mixer, there seemed to be way more enemies than when I did it solo. Lowered the amount of negative reputation players gain when hanging around certain areas of the yard that aren't bug dens. That's a good change because it sounded like a lot of people were getting hit with random factional raids for no reason. They weren't actually going in like the anthills. They weren't aggravating any specific enemies. They weren't killing specific enemies, and they were just getting randomly attacked. Players no longer generate negative reputation with bees by just being in the flower bed area. This should help everyone I believe this should help everyone who has a base near the oak tree, because it sounded like a lot of people that built by the oak tree, their bases were getting destroyed by bees because the beehive was moved from the picnic table over to the oak tree. And apparently doing that, inadvertently made it where being anywhere near the oak tree or near where the flowers are over there, and that's pretty much the only place you're going to be able to get flower petals, was it was angering the bees and causing them to do damage to your base, and the bees do a lot of damage to your base, especially if you have lower tier building materials. The max amount of flying creatures that can be attacking your base at the exact time has been halved. That's probably going to help with the bee raids and the mosquito raids. No change for non-flying creatures. Infected gnats are no longer participate in defense events. I don't know if I've ever seen an infected gnat, but I haven't had an infected raid yet. I did do the mixer actually maybe there were. I don't remember if there was any in the haze mixer, so maybe they were there and I just don't remember them. Infected wolf spiders no longer participate in base attacks for now, so it sounds like they've been taken out, but they'll be added later. These were only, I think, if you got an infected raid and had the haze plugged, or the weed killer plugged. I have done the haze mixer, and there were no infected wolf spiders. I have not had an infected raid, and I do not have the haze plug, so I'm not sure. I would imagine that if they were not spawned on the map, they would not be able to raid you, but it doesn't matter right now. They've been taken out. I'm sure they'll be added later back in, since it says for now. Defense event creatures are now much easier to stun. Okay, I mean, stun in the game is kind of underwhelming to me, but that's definitely a good change. Defense event creatures now remain stunned for longer. I got another good change. Defense event creatures now have much lower stun cooldown, so it sounds like they're just putting a heavy emphasis on stun. I would imagine that might be because I would guess that the pollen turret is probably not being used as frequently as the pebblet turret, because the pollen is much harder to get in large quantities than it is to get pebblets, which are basically all over the map. You can just go get tons of them. Defensive end creatures now take 3 times damage from turrets, up from 2. I personally found the turrets to be underwhelming. I know other people have said they thought they were okay. When I tested them out and I only used them a little bit, they just felt like they were underwhelming, that they were hard to aim. They were a little bit wonky in the fact that when they shoot the pebblets, for example, when they shoot the pebblets out, they kind of had like a weird trajectory for me. And I would oftentimes think I was actually going to hit an enemy and it would just miss them. And it didn't really seem to do a lot of damage. So this looks like they basically increased the damage by 50%, so from 2 up to 3. The amount of attacking creatures sent to larger bases have been decreased in size. I had no idea that the size of your base determine how many creatures were going to come. So I guess that's a good change. Turrets. Now, turrets was one thing I didn't mention earlier on. I kind of felt the turrets were... I wouldn't personally use the turrets as they were. Turrets are now unlocked on earlier burgle chips. That kind of makes sense because by the time you got them, I think it was the black anthill and the picnic table, you probably finished pretty much everything you would need them for. Turret recipes have been changed to require lower tier ingredients. Good change there. Pollen turret now guaranteed to stun almost. I guess that maybe means like the biggest enemies, maybe not Ore Weavers. All wave creatures in a single shot. The creature's stun cooldown has to lapse before they can be stunned again. I'm interested to test that out, although like I said, pollen's a pain in the butt to get in large quantities. Pollen turret now also applies 70% movement slow for 20 seconds. Turrets can aim slightly higher and lower. Now, personally, and I did suggest this over on the Grounded Discord, and it did get far more votes than needed for it to get to the devs' attention. I suggested having the pollen just removed completely and just having 3 types of ammo: pebblet ammo, clay ammo, and quartzite ammo. Essentially, what you would do would be put each of those into a grinder, and for each one you put in, you would get 5 ammo. The pebblet would do the base amount of damage, which I guess has been slightly increased. So whatever the base amount is, pebblet would do that. The clay would do less damage, like 25% less, but also would do more stun. So basically, it could be the pollen, honestly, but it would still do damage because clay is softer than the rocks or the quartzite. And the quartzite, since it's more, you need it for weapon upgrades, and it's also going to be more valuable. I was going to have that do 25% more damage and also do piercing, where it basically, if it hit one enemy and there was another enemy directly behind it, would also hit that enemy. So those were my suggestions for ammo, and hopefully like I said, they got the requisite number of votes, so perhaps it'll be considered. Honestly, I don't see myself ever using the pollen turret because I think in my solo world where I have at least a couple hundred hours, I think I maybe have like 20 or 30 pollen. So I pick it up when I see it. It's not like it's just not readily available like pebblets are. So anyway, changes to I do like the fact that they are addressing the fact that the turrets felt like they were a little bit underwhelming, at least to me, and you'll be able to get them earlier. Because if you're going to add something new to the game, it would make sense to be able to use it as soon as possible, and for as much as the content where it applies, which, like I said, getting it when you got it, you'd probably already finished 3 or 4 of the mixers, so it'd only be useful in the upper yard, and then for your regular base defenses. Moving on, combat. The player can now attack enemies using melee through windows and over walls more reliably. That's going to be interesting to see. That can probably only apply to spears or stabbing weapons, because I'm imagining swinging a mace or a sword or a club, you're just going to end up hitting the wall and doing damage to it. So that'll be interesting to see if that actually works. Charcoal items. Charcoal torch durability doubled. Charcoal torch now only requires 1 charcoal to repair. Charcoal canteen durability doubled. Charcoal canteen can now hold 6 drops. I mean, these are all good changes. My one question is going to be, it doesn't say in here, does the charcoal canteen still take durability damage when you're scooping clean water or you're scooping juice or soda? Because it makes no sense for it to do that, because the whole point of it is to filter the dirty water. So it doesn't sound like they changed that. I will test that out. Probably when I stream later tonight, I'll just test that out and see if that actually has changed. Because if it's still taking durability damage when you're scooping any water, even if it was doubled, I think it was like 15, it doubles up to 30. I still don't feel like repairing it. I'll probably just end up using the regular Canteen Plus. Explosive Bird Trap. I personally have never used these other than testing them out in custom mode because they just don't really seem useful. Explosive Bird Trap now does significantly less damage to buildings and players. That makes sense because honestly, the only way to set them off is with a spicy weapon, and that would mean either shooting it with a spicy arrow or hitting it with a spicy melee weapon. If you hit it with a spicy melee weapon, it essentially detonates right where it was and would do damage to you, so that kind of makes sense. Explosive Bird Trap now does much more damage to wave creatures. That's interesting that it says wave creatures and not all creatures. Explosive Bird Trap now has twice the explosion range. Explosive Bird Trap can now be placed on walls and ceilings. I don't know why you would place it on a wall if it's still going to do damage to your structures. That doesn't make sense unless maybe the enemy hits it, but since they're only set off by sizzling effect, that would mean only a ladybird larva would set it off, because no other enemies in the game do sizzling damage. So, or I don't even know if they would set them off, to be completely honest. So honestly, the Explosive Bird Trap, I mean, I guess it's better than the Tripwire Bomb that it seemed like it replaced, because the Tripwire Bomb just was like, didn't really serve any purpose, and it was kind of expensive because bombs were not like super easy to get. But I still don't see myself ever using this, so hopefully they maybe just add some more traps, because I'm not going to use this. Also, if you don't plug the haze, you can only get 10 spiky burrs, which means you can only make 10 of these and then you're done, or you can't make, and then you also can't make any floors because you need 4 for each floor. So until they make the spiky burrs more available without turning the haze off, I'm probably just never going to make them anyway. All base armor damage threshold value increased by 10%. Now, what I think that means is the defense has been increased by 10%. That's what it sounds like. And while obviously this is better than 0, I don't think this is enough. I just don't think that it's going to make any, you're not going to notice any difference, to be completely honest. So, as an example, the roly-poly armor, which was the strongest armor before this update, when you crafted it and put it on, it had, I mean, didn't have any levels, right? It was just armor. It gave you 5 defense for all 3 pieces, so a total of 15 defense. Now I believe the total is, I believe it's 9 if you add them all together. I'd have to check. Yeah, it's 5.5 plus, or maybe it's more than that. It might be more. But they've reworked armor completely, so it's kind of hard to compare pre-update armor with post-update armor, other than the fact that I did get a chance to test it right the day before the update actually went live. I tested the roly-poly armor specifically against a bunch of different enemies in the game, specifically roly-polies, black ox beetles, ladybird larvae, and stuff like that, and ladybirds, basically the beefier enemies, also mosquitoes. And then I also tested it in the public test server with a fully maxed out level 9 bulky, and they ended up performing about equally. It felt like it was kind of hard to tell. They were basically equal except for against ladybird larva. That was the only enemy that felt like it was doing way more damage from the ones I tested. The rest of them felt like it was comparable. The issue being that you have to get it to level 9 now. So they've essentially nerfed the armor significantly at base level, which makes sense because it wouldn't make any sense to have it be the base of what it was before, and then you upgrade it 9 times, and it ends up being like super armor, you don't take any damage. But I don't think this 10% is enough. Honestly, I was suggesting 50%, so I don't think this is going to make that much of a difference. We'll test it out, of course, when I play the game tonight and then in the future, and you guys will have to let me know if you notice any difference. I don't think this is going to make any difference. I think it needs to be at least another 40% so that the base armor is just better. And it doesn't look like they've mentioned any other armor stuff, so let's real quick talk about this. This does not address the fact that the armor set bonuses, piece bonuses, sleek bonuses, all across the board feel underwhelming. I've tested all of them at this point, and they just feel underwhelming, almost like they're not even noticeable. But honestly, the difference between sleek and bulky is so little in terms of how much extra armor you're going to be getting or defense you're going to be getting that I still was recommending going the sleek path. But all the bonuses need addressing significantly, in my opinion. They all need to be probably at least doubled in terms of how much the effects they provide and maybe the chance they provide, stuff like that. They all need to be, because you really can't feel it. And I'm not the only one that's saying this, because I went through the Grounded Discord and I was seeing the same people. Many people were saying the same things. Most of the feedback I saw regarding the armor bonuses was specifically that armor just feels weak in general, and the bonuses don't feel like they make any impact. So essentially, the only difference is going to be whether you want to have light, medium, or heavy armor affecting your stamina. And then the tier basically, so for me, I basically been choosing the antlion armor because it's going to have less impact on my stamina and provides about almost the same defense as the roly-poly armor. So hopefully they address that. And the other thing that doesn't look like it's addressed in here is going to be the cost of upgrading. Like I said, it doesn't make any sense to have clover armor cost the same as roly-poly armor to get from levels 1 to 9 when you're not even going to be able to get the resources to make clover armor to level 8 and 9 specifically, because you need the pupa hides. You're not going to be going in the upper yard to get with a clover armor most likely. And by the time you go to the upper yard, you're just going to have better armor. You're not going to upgrade it. So to me, it doesn't make any sense. I feel like the tier 1 should cost far less to upgrade. Tier 2 should cost less than tier 3. Tier 3, they can leave them where they are. They feel fine. But like the tier 1 and 2 need to be reduced in terms of upgrade costs, just so there's actually a reason to upgrade them and they can actually be used instead of just blowing right through them, because at that point, why even have them? So anyway, let's move on to the last couple of changes here. Creature cards. Looting the last existing Tasty, Rusty, and Archer in the yard will guarantee regular and gold card unlocks for creatures. This will retroactively unlock for players who already looted them. This is basically the way of... So instead of having the bots respawn and having you to farm them, once you've killed all the bots for each type, you're going to get the gold card. So that's going to help the people that are completionists, that care about that kind of stuff, and perhaps in the future, maybe there's going to be something tied to getting all the gold cards. So that's definitely going to be helpful for that. Looting the assistant manager will grant you the gold card even if you had not previously peeped it. Some people killed the assistant manager, looted it, and then didn't peep it, and then they couldn't get the gold card. So it sounds like basically if you beat the assistant manager, you're going to get the gold card retroactively. Then we got some bug fixes down here. You can invite players to join your game via Steam. Again, that's cool because it was a pain in the butt joining Original Ryan when we were playing on Steam. Improved memory usage on Xbox Series X. Hopefully that reduces the crashes, because I know some people were still crashing after the update. Items no longer gradually lose durability after multiple save loads on difficulties that are not medium. I don't know if this is still happening to me. I guess I got to check. I put my armor and stuff on dummies and in chests all the time and don't even check if they're losing durability, because I know people have said their weapons and armor are losing durability when they're just not equipped, when they're basically not in their inventory. If they're in a chest on armor stand, stuff like that, they're losing durability. So I haven't even checked that to see if that's actually happening. And then we got some crash fixes here, ant colonies, some of the quests. Okay, so these are basically just minor things. Hopefully they help you guys out if these are affecting you. Other issues, black soldier ants, doesn't matter. Grinder items, properly moved to completed. Okay, mixer no longer take a long time spinning. Rusty gold cards unlock properly now. So all in all, I mean, there's positive changes in here. I hope there's a 13.2 that addresses some more of the armor stuff because, like I said, overall armor just feels underwhelming. It feels like it's weak. It's like, and then you have to level it up and then the bonuses for it. Like every armor I've tried, it just doesn't feel like it matters. So basically what I'm going to end up doing is just probably using the antlion armor or the roly-poly armor and just stick with it because they provide the most defense, and that's going to be that. I mean, I don't know what to say other than I really hope they address the fact that armor it's still going to feel weak with a 10% increase. That's not going to make any difference. No one's going to notice that. Let's be real here. It needs to be at least like you got to make it impactful where it's like a 50% increase. And then maybe if that's too high, then we draw back a little bit. But early game, the level 0 armors are just going to provide you, you might as well just run around with nothing on because it's really not going to protect you that much. So hopefully they address that. Hopefully they address the bonuses, and hopefully they also address the upgrading tier 1 and tier 2 armors, and probably the same thing with weapons, because to be completely honest, once you start playing the game, you know what you're doing. You're basically just going to rush to get to tier 2 and tier 3 and skip over tier 1 as fast as possible, making most of those items useless. And then aside from that, the one other thing was they really, really, really need to put in a toggle switch, whether it be just making all saves custom. That could be a thing, just make all saves custom, or just enabling that one other feature on all old saves where you can just turn off faction reactivity, because I know there's some people who just don't want base raids. I like base raids. I want base raids. I'm currently streaming myself building my base where I want to just start triggering base raids to see if I can defend it. I know a lot of people don't want base raids, so just have everybody not be able to have base raids if they don't want them. I don't see how there's any harm in that. So make all save, even if it's just like that one field, because right now if you're on a non-custom save, the only thing you can change is difficulty. Just make that other field toggleable, or just make all saves custom. That will probably solve the problem the most. So anyway, that's the patch. Some good changes in there. Hopefully there's going to be more to come before the next major update. I really don't want to have to wait 3 months for armor to get addressed. And other than that, let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you found the video helpful, make sure to click the like button and consider subscribing for more videos just like this. If you want to become a member, click the join card on the screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.